What's up, guys? This is Chris from DraftDashboard.com. Here are my DFS picks for NBA Sunday, April 25th. These picks apply for DraftKings and FanDuel. Before I get started, please drop a like on this video and hit that red subscribe button and hit that bell icon so you don't miss our new videos. In this video, I'm going to go over my top picks for today's NBA slate. And if you stick around to the very end of this video, we'll use the Draft Dashboard tools to make a DFS lineup using the picks we just made. Okay guys, we have a 4-game slate tonight, so let's take a look at the point guard position. I like Stephen Curry from the Golden State Warriors playing the Sacramento Kings, who have the third worst defense overall, and they give up the second most fantasy points to opposing point guards. Stephen Curry has averaged 47.2 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 34 minutes per game with a 34% usage rate. He scored 43, 35, and 54 fantasy points in his last 3 games, playing 33, 36, and 36 minutes. He's projected at 48.4 fantasy points here tonight. That's just about 5 times value. I think he can score 50 fantasy points or more in this matchup. Even if he doesn't play the whole game, I think he's got a fantastic matchup here. So that'd be 5 times value or more, and he's 9,800 FanDuel salary and 700 more on DraftKings. Vegas thinks there's going to be 229.5 points scored in this game, and I like this pick because he scored 51, 49, and 48 fantasy points in his last 3 games versus the Kings. So I like Stephen Curry here versus the Sacramento Kings. Okay, another point guard that I like, I'm going to give you a value play here. This is a tournament play, risky play here, but I got a good feeling about this one. I like Ish Smith from the Washington Wizards playing the Cleveland Cavaliers, who have a middle-of-the-pack defense overall, and they're middle-of-the-pack defending opposing point guards. Ish Smith has averaged 17.7 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 20 minutes per game with a 16% usage rate. He scored 9, 17, and 15 fantasy points in the last 3 games, playing 17, 18, and 21 minutes. He's projected at 17.2 fantasy points here tonight. That's just about 5 times value. He's only 3,500 FanDuel salary and 100 more on DraftKings. He scored 26, 35, 13, 27, and 25 fantasy points in his last 5 games versus the Cavaliers. So that's really good player versus team history. And Vegas thinks there's going to be 229 points scored in this game. So I like Ish Smith as a tournament play here versus the Cleveland Cavaliers. Before I continue with the picks, I'm excited today because we added a new contest for everyone watching. If you want to enter the drawing for $100 PayPal, all you need to do is like this video, hit that subscribe button, and make a quick comment below to be entered into the drawing. We'll reply to a random comment and let you know that you won, and then we'll send you $100 PayPal. So it's that easy, and we pick a new winner every Saturday and announce them in our video. So get your comment in now so I can add another entry for you. Okay, let's take a look at the shooting guard position. I like Kevin Huerter from the Atlanta Hawks playing the Milwaukee Bucks, who have a middle-of-the-pack defense overall, and they give up the 3rd most fantasy points to opposing shooting guards. Kevin Huerter has averaged 24.8 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 31 minutes per game with a 17% usage rate. But take a look at his last 3 games. He scored 38, 29, and 29 fantasy points in his last 3 games, playing 35, 43, and 30 minutes. He's projected at 27.3 fantasy points here tonight, but I think he can score you 32 fantasy points or more and get you over 5 times value. He's 5,700 FanDuel salary and 700 more on DraftKings. So I love that FanDuel price. Vegas thinks there's going to be 226.5 points scored in this game. He scored 31 fantasy points in his last game versus the Bucks. So I like Kevin Huerter here versus the Milwaukee Bucks. Okay, another value play at the shooting guard position. I like Isaac Okoro from the Cleveland Cavaliers playing the Washington Wizards, who have the 4th worst defense overall, and they give up the 8th most fantasy points to opposing shooting guards. Isaac Okoro has averaged 17.2 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 32 minutes per game with a 13% usage rate. Now, he's only scored 14, 13, and 11 fantasy points in the last 3 games, but he's played a ton of minutes. He played 34, 27, and 32 minutes in those games. So he's projected at 17.2 fantasy points here tonight, but playing over 30 minutes, I think he can score 20 fantasy points or more here, get you 5 times value or more. He's $3,700 FanDuel salary, and he's $100 less on DraftKings. We know Vegas thinks there's going to be 229 points scored in this game, so a high-scoring game and a great matchup in a fast-paced game. So I like Isaac Okoro here versus the Washington Wizards. Okay, let's take a look at the small forward position. Another value play. I like Donta Hall from the Orlando Magic playing the Indiana Pacers, who have the 6th worst defense overall, and they give up the 2nd most fantasy points to opposing small forwards. Donta Hall has averaged 17.9 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 14 minutes per game with a 12% usage rate, but he scored 25 fantasy points in 20 minutes last game, so he's projected at 17.8 fantasy points here tonight. Now on FanDuel, that's almost 5 times value because he's $3,700 FanDuel salary, but he's $500 less on DraftKings. So I love that DraftKings price. Vegas thinks there's going to be 224.5 points scored in this game. Just a great DraftKings price. If he can play 20 minutes or more, he should have no problem hitting value over there on DK. It's a fantastic matchup. So I like Donta Hall on DraftKings here versus the Indiana Pacers. Okay, here's another value play on DraftKings and a mid-range play on FanDuel. I like O'Shea Brissett from the Indiana Pacers playing the Orlando Magic, who have the 5th worst defense overall, and they're middle of the pack defending opposing small forwards. O'Shea Brissett has averaged 16.4 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 16 minutes per game with a 16% usage rate. But take a look at this last 3 games. He scored 30, 53, and 23 fantasy points in the last 3 games, playing 38, 42, and 24 minutes. So just monster minutes in the past couple of games, and he's projected at 22.9 fantasy points here tonight, but I think he can score you 26 fantasy points or more and get you 5 times value or more. He's $5,300 FanDuel salary, but he's $500 less on DraftKings. So I'm probably only playing O'Shea Brissett here on DraftKings. Vegas thinks there's going to be 224.5 points scored in this game. So I like O'Shea Brissett here versus the Orlando Magic.
Real quick, guys, I got great news. For a limited time, we're offering a full 30-day trial to Draft Dashboard. You can try all of our DFS tools for all sports. You can try the Position Optimizer, where you can see the top players ranked for each position. And we added a new Player Trends tool, where you can see the top salary differences between FanDuel and DraftKings. It's a really good tool to help you pick out value for the site that you're playing on. Oh, and if you're tired of doing research every day, we just added a cheat sheet that shows hand-picked plays for the slate. No confusing stat lines, no headaches, just a simple cheat sheet that shows the absolute best players for your lineups.
Okay, let's take a look at the power forward position. So with all those value plays, you should have plenty of salary for Giannis Antetokounmpo from the Milwaukee Bucks playing the Atlanta Hawks, who have a middle-of-the-pack defense overall, and they're middle of the pack defending opposing power forwards. Giannis Antetokounmpo has averaged 54.8 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 34 minutes per game with a 33% usage rate. He scored 56, 61, and 49 fantasy points in the last 3 games, playing 23, 35, and 35 minutes. He's projected at 51.6 fantasy points here tonight. That's 4.7 times value. He's 10,900 FanDuel salary, and he's 200 less on DraftKings. He scored 35, 54, 56, and 54 fantasy points in his last 4 games versus the Hawks. Vegas thinks there's going to be 226.5 points scored in this game. Now, this is a back-to-back, but Giannis only played 23 minutes last game, so he should be fresh and good to go for 30 minutes or more. He can get you 50 to 70 fantasy points in those 30 minutes. So I like Giannis Antetokounmpo here versus the Atlanta Hawks. Okay, another power forward that I like is John Collins from the Atlanta Hawks playing the Milwaukee Bucks, who have a middle-of-the-pack defense overall. And although they've been pretty good defending opposing power forwards, John Collins has averaged 32.4 fantasy points per game of the season, playing an average of 30 minutes per game with a 23% usage rate. He scored 30, 21, and 34 fantasy points in his last 3 games, playing 32, 27, and 25 minutes. Now, he's only projected at 30.3 fantasy points, but I think he can score close to 40 fantasy points in this one and get you 5 times value or more. He's 6,900 FanDuel salary and 500 more on DraftKings. So I love that FanDuel price. He scored 42 and 38 fantasy points in his last 2 games versus the Bucks. Vegas thinks there's going to be 226.5 points scored in this game. So I think John Collins and Giannis have big games here tonight. So I like John Collins here versus the Milwaukee Bucks. Okay, moving on to the center position. I like Jarrett Allen from the Cleveland Cavaliers playing the Washington Wizards, who have the 4th worst defense overall, and they give up the 2nd most fantasy points to opposing centers. Jarrett Allen has averaged 31.6 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 29 minutes per game with a 17% usage rate. He scored 25, 22, and 14 fantasy points in the last 3 games, playing 33, 28, and 27 minutes. So he's been underperforming his season average, but he's playing plenty of minutes, and he's projected at 32.8 fantasy points here tonight. That's 5.4 times value. He's 6,100 FanDuel salary, and he's 1,000 more on DraftKings. So I love that FanDuel price. He scored 39, 16, 48, 14, and 45 fantasy points in his last 5 games versus the Wizards. I think he's due for a big game here tonight, and Vegas thinks there's going to be 229 points scored in this game. It's a fantastic matchup, so I like Jarrett Allen, especially on FanDuel here versus the Washington Wizards. Okay, another value play for you at the center position. I like Kevon Looney from the Golden State Warriors playing the Sacramento Kings, who have the 3rd worst defense overall, and they give up the 9th most fantasy points to opposing centers. Kevon Looney has averaged 14 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 17 minutes per game with a 10% usage rate. But take a look at these last 3 games. He scored 18, 20, and 22 fantasy points in the last 3 games, playing 27, 26, and 33 minutes. He's projected at 18.5 fantasy points here tonight. That's 4.7 times value. But I think he scores 20 fantasy points or more in this one, gets you 5 times value or more. He's 3,900 FanDuel salary, and he's 200 less on DraftKings. So Vegas thinks there's going to be 229.5 points scored in this game. So I like Kevon Looney here versus the Sacramento Kings.
If you want to try all these daily fantasy tools for yourself, click the link in the description below this video or just go to draftdashboard.com. You can use our DFS lineup optimizer to build quality lineups using our picks and your own custom player pool. Click the link in the description below this video and try all these daily fantasy tools right now. Thanks so much for watching. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel and hit that bell icon so you can get instant updates whenever we post a new video. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed this video, please smiggity smash that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Oh, and please comment below with your favorite player for this NBA slate. I love to hear what you guys have to think. Thanks again, and good luck.